Call this meeting to order, March 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Mahoney,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Here.
Trustee Westcott,
Here.
Trustee Cohen,
Here.
Trustee White,
Here.
Trustee Bristow,
Here.
Trustee Tapey,
Here.
We have a quorum. Approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda with one small amendment. I would like to move our executive session up to right after our consent agenda, please. So my motion is with that amendment. Second.
Roll call, please. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Trustee Bristow,
Yes.
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
And the motion carries. All right, next item is public comments, and we have, looks like just one, Mr. Strock. If you would, please. You know the drill.
Good evening. Larry Strock, live at 840 Lone Wolf Circle. I just have a couple of little things that are kind of bothering me tonight, and I thought I'd say something. Maybe you'll find them a little bit contentious or not, I don't know. Number one is I would say, if on our newsletter, we're going to advertise for nonprofit, then we should advertise for all nonprofits. It seems like it'd be a little more fair. The second thing I wanted to mention was a library. I hear a lot of people talking about the library. For me, my belief is Hudson will sit on the fence for a long time, just like they did with the fire impact fees and stuff. But my point would be that if you were to draw a 2 or 3 mile circle around Loch Buoy and think of all these children that would like to go to a library, I think you'd find part of them live right here in Brighton and part of them live here in Loch Buoy. And so my question might be to you, maybe sometime you would consider talking to Brighton about putting in a school. Seems like more of their children would use our library than Hudson. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next item is consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are the payment approval report in the amount of $221,367.61, as well as the February 21st, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Trustee Bristow,
Yes.
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Okay. And the next item is to go into executive session. Do I have a motion?
I move that we move into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-4024B with special counsel for the town to answer legal questions and provide legal advice on the status of efforts for a town library.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Discussion, please, Mayor. I'd like the record to reflect that I will be recusing myself from this executive session if you approve going into it due to my place on the Hudson Library Board.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Tapey,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
trustee Bristow,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes. And motion carries. And sorry. The time is now 6:35 and we will take a brief break while we move into the other room. You just enjoy yourself, 45 minutes later. Right. You ready? Okay. Right. Let's see, the time is now 7:32 PM and the executive session has been concluded. For the record, if any person who participated believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I ask that you state your concern for the record. Seeing none. Next item is the first consideration of ordinance 2023-681. And who's taking that tennis ball?
Thank you, Mayor. The ordinance before you tonight is drafted to adopt a uniform set of regulations that govern traffic movement in the state of Colorado. The Colorado Department of Transportation from time to time promulgates what they call a model traffic code and encourages all municipalities and counties, frankly, in the state to adopt that model traffic code so that the basic traffic laws are the same as you travel from Lock Buoy to Brighton, et cetera, et cetera. It just makes sense that it would have some statewide uniformity. And then state law recognizes that when you want to adopt a code of regulations like that, that some other entity promulgates, like the Department of Transportation in this example, we don't take that long document, that model traffic code's like this thick. We don't codify that. We don't put that in our town code verbatim, every single word within that. Instead, what we put in our town code is something that says, we hereby adopt that model traffic code as promulgated by the Department of Transportation. But under state law, when you do something like that, the process for adopting an ordinance that adopts a code by reference requires you to do two considerations of the ordinance. The first consideration is tonight where you say, okay, we're generally going to look at that ordinance and take final action on it in the future. And we're going to have a public hearing on it and allow the public to come in and speak to the model traffic code and whether or not they think it makes sense and whether the amendments that we are putting in it as a town make sense for this town. And so you need tonight to basically just adopt a motion. I think it's there in your staff report or your AIS. That sets a public hearing on that. I think on April 18th is what the motion provides. And then on that night, we can talk more in detail about the model traffic code and the actual amendments that we're recommending as a town be included within that. And then just for the public's information, state law also requires that we keep copies of that model traffic code in the town clerk's office for the next period of time while you guys are, while we're waiting for the public hearing to take place. So if any member of the public really wants to come in and read the 2020 model traffic code, they can do that at Heather's office, but practically it's also available on the internet. So just Colorado Department of Transportation 2020 model traffic code. So that's it. And their motion that we need this evening is in your packet. Thank you.
Okay, motion.
I move that the Town Board of Trustees sets a public hearing and consideration of ordinance 2023-681 for April 18th, 2023 at 6:30 PM at Town Hall, and order the town clerk to publish notice of such hearing in accordance with the requirements of state law.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney,
Yes.
Trustee Bristow,
Yes.
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey.
Yes.
Motion carries. And the next item is resolution 2023-11.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. Tonight I bring you staff's recommendation for award for the Water System Master Plan. The Water System Master Plan is a planning document that basically tells us exactly what we need in our water system and when we need to do it. The last master plan was completed in 2017. Since then, the town has continued to grow, and as the town looks at further growth, we're contemplating areas outside of the planning area that was incorporated in the 2017 plan. And we're also looking at other water sources, which is going to require additional treatment and or different processes to be able to serve the community with quality water. The updated master plan will take into effect or into account all of these different factors and help us continue to grow and provide quality water. In November of 22, staff issued a formal request for proposals from qualified consultants. We have gone through and reviewed all of the submitted proposals, interviewed consultants, and tonight we recommend Blue Water Engineering for the water master plan update. I have Brian Daw here, principal of Blue Water Engineering. He'll introduce the proposal to you. Brian.
Chris. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. My name is Brian Daw. I'm a principal with the principal with Blue Water Engineering. Been practicing professional engineering for 27 years, 25 here in Colorado. A grad of University of Colorado with a master's in civil engineering. The team we pulled together for the proposal is based on some of the experience that the town recently went through with Brian and Chris and finishing up the wastewater master plan. So we've got some folks that are very familiar with the project. I'm teamed with Martin and Martin and also with Aqua Engineering, who have a lot of background with the town systems as they are. So that's who I've teamed up with in order to deliver the project. And we look forward to working with Chris and Brian, your operator and responsible charge, Wayne Ramey, and getting back here in front of the board here in the next 8 months or so to present our findings. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions, comments? Trustee
Thank you.
Westcott, anything? Okay, all right, thank you. Hey, with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2023-11, authorizing the town administrator to negotiate and execute a services agreement with Blue Water Engineering Limited for an amount not to exceed $162,500.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Get trustee White as a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney,
Yes.
Trustee Bristow,
Yes.
Trustee White, Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, next item is the infrastructure financing overview. The floor is yours, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, trustees. Since I began working for the town in the summer of 2021, we've been receiving interest in development on the east side of I-76. Although that's exciting and holds great potential for positive growth in the town, there's virtually no infrastructure on the east side of I-76. So also, along with talking with folks about potential development on the east side of I-76, we've begun exploring how to facilitate financing infrastructure on the east side of I-76. After quite a bit of discussion, we have a couple of key options we'd like to share with you tonight, why we think they are important tools for us to use, and share how they can be beneficial to the town. We've asked for the help of an expert, Roger Tinklenberg. His biography is in the packet. So we have a few slides to walk through. There's no hard and fast decisions being made tonight, but we would like some general direction. If these options seem reasonable to the board, there's more work we can do on these options, but a number of approvals would be necessary from the board that would happen much further down the road. Because these projects are large, financing them can be complicated, and there's a lot of lead time needed to line up significant amounts of financing for large capital projects. So that's why, even though we have no active applications for annexations for properties on the east side of I-76, we think it's timely to be having these conversations with the board and be starting to line up potential methods of financing large infrastructure projects. Certainly, we know of the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe property on the east side. That's one of several projects that could annex into the town. As we've mentioned here, our rough estimate is somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million worth of infrastructure on the east side of I-76 for a community with a general fund budget of about $7 million annually. That can be a daunting task. Good news is there are tools out there that communities throughout the state use to fund projects like this. The key infrastructure that's needed are roads, storm drainage, water and sewer improvements. I would like to think of it in terms of an investment. The development that we've been hearing about that's potential on the east side of I-76, I think is legitimate economic development that would bring about a return in terms of jobs and tax revenue in the town. So important things for us to be talking about. Again, to figure out the best way to do this for the town of Lochbuie, we've pulled together what we're calling our infrastructure financing team. You know, most of the people on this pie chart. Roger Tinklenberg's going to talk through most of the slides here in a minute. The other name that's on there is a young woman named Grace Erickson. If we are to pursue an urban renewal authority, there's a lot of staff work needed that would exceed the capacity of town staff to do. So if we were to move in that direction, Grace is somebody who would likely help us with that work. So that's our current infrastructure financing team. I will turn it over to Roger to walk through the rest of the slides, and we'll all be available to answer questions.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and trustees. As Brian said, I'm Roger Tinklenberg. Want to run through these options that are available to you. As we look at the project, $200 million at 6% interest, that would mean an annual debt service payment of approximately $14.5 million. If you can get it at 5%, you're at $13 million. And so trying to absorb that in the town budget is impossible. So we have to look at these other options. And so I'll run through these We have 5 basic options. One is to ask the developers to front all the money. There's risks and benefits with that, and I'll go through those risks and benefits. Now, the second option is to allow the developers to set up metro districts. Those are metropolitan districts, they're special districts. They're controlled by the developer until there's homeowners. Well, in this case, we're talking commercial development, so you won't ever have homeowners. You'll have property owners, but you won't have homeowners. Third option is to establish a general improvement district or multiple districts. And that's a special district, has its own taxing authority, all of that type of thing. And I'll go through those benefits and risks with that as well. Fourth option is to establish a urban renewal authority. And that has, again, benefits not only to the project, but you could use that tool elsewhere in the community if you wanted to redevelop other areas of the community. And then there's some combination of all of those options that may be viable. So talking about option one, developer funding, they're going to have to front all of the money under this option. So that's a substantial investment over and above what they'll be investing in the facility, that whatever they're building, whether it's the multimodal transfer facility or the logistics parks that go along with that, associated with it. Now, the benefit to this is doesn't take any town funds then. And there's also no need for the town staff to be burdened with managing it, overseeing construction, figuring out how to fund it. But then the risks are that the developer controls it completely. The town has no say basically other than whatever you put into place through contractual methods. Also, the infrastructure may be built piecemeal. And if it's done, a segment here and a segment there to serve different portions of the property, that may not be ultimately beneficial to the community. And you really want to look at how do we leverage this investment to benefit the entire community. Also, the developer is going to have a higher cost of financing than public financing. And so there's the question of, will they be basically frozen out of the market just because of the high cost of financing? Or will there even be investors willing to put up that much money? And then the final question mark, risk, is if they do succeed in getting financing and they have to wrap that entire $200 million worth of cost for the infrastructure into the price of their product, whether it's through sale or leasing, does that price them out of the market? So those are all different considerations to think of as you look at the project. Now, option number two is where they set up metro districts. And again, the community benefit there is it doesn't take any money from the community unless you would do some type of moral obligation backing, and I would recommend against that. You never really want to get into financing bed with a developer. Town staff also would not be burdened with overseeing it, having to figure out how to finance it. The risk is metropolitan districts can be misused by a developer. There have been some where a lot of money went into the developer's pocket and didn't go towards the intended purpose, which was building the infrastructure. There's also the question of who controls. And in this case, the developer's metro district controls the timing, controls the quality. Unless you're out there rigorously inspecting, it's up to them to honor the standards that the town has put into place. And again, you have the same other risks where it may be built piecemeal and doesn't benefit the overall community. Again, same risk on the funding availability. Is it going to be too costly? Is it even available? And then also, again, if they succeed in getting the financing, do they wrap that into the purchase price or the lease price? And does that price them out of the market? So again, those same risks as with the first option. Now, the third option is where you set up a general improvement district. And when I say you, it's the Board of Trustees that establishes that general improvement district. And the Board of Trustees serves as the Board of Directors for that district. So you, as the Board of Trustees, have the control. So the benefit is, you know what the money is going to be spent on, you know when it's going to be built, all of that type of thing. You control it. Now, the other benefit of that is that there is either no or limited risk to the community. And when I say that, what I mean is the town could do a moral obligation for the general improvement district. Again, I would recommend against that. It may not even benefit the metro district just because of the size of the town's budget. When you're looking at funding $200 million worth of infrastructure improvements, the town budget of 6.5 or 6.8, almost $7 million isn't going to be that beneficial to the bond underwriters. They're going to look at the project itself and see if that will truly substantiate, be able to pay off those bonds.
But real
Now-
quick, on the metro districts, those are 30-year, correct? Do those sunset in 30
Generally,
years?
yes.
Yeah, and with a GID, no sunset.
No sunset with a GID, that's correct. And I'll talk about one of the other benefits, that last bullet there. The general improvement district can not only fund the bonds, but it can also pay for the ongoing maintenance and operation of those improvements. Yep. And that's a huge benefit that none of the other options provide, because all of the other options require the town to eventually take over operation and maintenance of those improvements. And then with the general improvement district, also the town staff is not burdened by the funding, oversight, all of that type of thing, unless you enter into an intergovernmental agreement between the town and the general improvement district. Or you can use the general improvement district to contract that out. So again, you have options there. Now, the risk is that the general improvement district might not build it at the time that the development needs it. So again, that requires coordination. The other issue is construction quality. But again, I would argue that you, as the board of the general improvement district, can guarantee that by who you hire and how that oversight occurs. And again, you also have that same risk of, is funding available and what cost will it be? The risks, sorry, went too fast. I covered those. Okay. Option 4, Urban Renewal Authority. The town board serves as the board of directors for the Urban Renewal Authority, but you also have to have one representative from the county, one from the school district, and one from all of the special districts. So by special districts, it's like fire district. If there's an independent water district, which you don't have, but if you did, all of those districts have to come together and figure out, okay, who's going to be our representative on the Urban Renewal Authority board. And then in this case, the Urban Renewal Authority funds the construction. And again, it's at either no or limited risk to the community because it's being funded out of the tax increment that comes off of the project. And by that occurring, you have access to tax revenue that you normally wouldn't have access to as the town. So it's definitely a benefit to the town in order to fund all of that infrastructure improvement. And as I mentioned earlier, it provides a tool that you can use elsewhere in the community as well. Now, the risk, again, the Urban Renewal Authority controls the construction, both quality and timing. But again, that quality shouldn't be an issue because you control that board. The infrastructure construction timing might not meet the developer's timeline. You know, they may want to be able to open next year, and it's going to take time to set up the Urban Renewal Authority and time to issue bonds and all of that type of thing. But again, the developer himself or herself has the same challenge, basically. You know, they've got to come up with the money. Also, the infrastructure construction may not be financed within the 25-year clock. And I have to emphasize that Urban Renewal Authority only has a 25-year clock. And so you collect that tax increment for 25 years and then it's done. And so all of that 200 million would have to be financed in that 25-year period. So that's a challenge. It might be able to be done, but it's a challenge you have to be aware of. And then the Urban Renewal Authority's capture of the tax increment may be problematic for, I'll use school district as an example. If they're planning on that development to fund additional schools or, replacing existing school structures, that increment is not there. Now, there'll be a negotiation process that you have to go through with all of those taxing jurisdictions. And so you'll have to negotiate how much of that you actually will keep in the Urban Renewal Authority versus how much do they see of that new tax increment that's coming in. And then a lot of this land is agricultural land. And there's a provision in state law now that says if you're going to form urban renewal area that includes farmland, you have to have written approval from all the taxing jurisdictions. So everyone will have to agree in writing that, yes, they agree with you forming an urban renewal area that includes that farmland. And then also with this one, the town must absorb the cost of ongoing operation and maintenance in the future. I rolled through that really fast. We have more information and turn it back over to Brian.
Well, one question I might answer for you before you need to ask it. We've used the term tax increment. Let me explain a little bit more what that is. So with the URA option, they use something called tax increment financing. What that does is it takes an area that's included in the Urban Renewal Authority. It freezes current property tax collections at the current amount. As the property increases in value through infrastructure, through development, there's an increase in property taxes. So the increment above the frozen value all gets used to pay for infrastructure in the Urban Renewal Authority. And it's not just the town's taxes, it would be school districts' taxes, the fire district's taxes, other special districts in that area. What's more typical in urban renewal authorities in the state of Colorado is agreements are reached with the other entities where you don't take all of the increment, you take a portion of it, typically half. So if the taxes today are $100 and next year they're $110, that $10 then gets split. 50% of it would go to the URA to fund infrastructure. The other 50% still goes to those taxing entities. That's the typical arrangement. We would have to negotiate that. So GIDs are different. They don't use tax increment financing, but URAs use that tax increment financing strategy. What other questions? We covered a lot there. And again, we're not asking for any big decisions tonight. We'll talk about a couple of recommendations, but what questions can we answer?
Go ahead, Trustee Mary.
I have a question about treating. That's okay, I know who I am. About treating the rail facility in the same bucket, I guess, for lack of a different way to describe it, as everything else over there. In terms of whether we're going to fund that with the GID or ask them to fund it themselves from an infrastructure standpoint, because I feel like
That's a great question. That's a great question. How would all of this work together? The reality is, and one of our recommendations is we really start looking at combinations of URA, GID, and developer funding. Certainly a project as big as the rail facility, they're expecting to put a bunch of their own money into not only their project, but infrastructure around the project. So these two funding mechanisms will be a benefit to them, I think, but it'll be and that's what we would do next, is start running some scenarios to see how might this work. Some magical combination of all three of those things. In addition, we haven't talked about it here tonight, but it's also possible when we're talking about water and sewer improvements that we could use additional funding through the water and sewer utilities to pay for those things.
Anyone else?
sorry, I do have one more thing. So are you in terms of tonight, are you just looking for us to say, go forth and figure some stuff out, or what do you need from us?
Great question. So what we would really like is permission to explore these combinations further. And to do that, we will spend a little bit of money because we'd like to have Roger help us some more with that. Roger, we worked together at the City of Commerce City, and Roger helped figure out a lot of this as Commerce City grew. So we'd like to spend a little bit of money, explore that further. But any key decisions, the key decisions are creating these entities, borrowing money. Those are all key decisions the board would make months down the road.
I just have to ask Roger, do we have to ask your wife's permission? Aren't you supposed to retire? Is she gonna come after us?
No, she will not.
Okay.
She may come after Kingsburg if that doesn't wrap up pretty soon.
Okay. Anyone have any? Trustee Tapey?
Brian, as I was reading through this information, it seemed like it was one or the other. So with either the URA or the GID, both of those seem like they're going to be very complex, trying to get people to step into those positions or being appointed to those positions. Were you just saying that we could possibly combine?
They would be
Those
separate
things.
entities. An urban renewal authority would be a separate entity from a general improvement district. My initial thinking is some combination of both could be the most effective approach. The good news about general improvement district is that board of directors would be you.
And you can be the. They have a urban renewal authority and multiple GIDs. And their board agendas read like convene the city council in that case, in your case, convene the board of trustees and have your meeting, convene the GID, and you all just pretend you went to a new meeting, convene the urban renewal authority. So the same people can serve in all those different functions. You're just governing a different body.
So as a result, your fiduciary responsibilities differ. You do somewhat wear different hats because we're talking about different budgets, different buckets of money. But it's doable without driving us all crazy.
Right. Anyone have anything else? Trustee Westcott, anything?
I was just curious as to what the legal definition of a blight is. This is really just for my own information, because that just looks like empty land. In my head, a blight is something that has been allowed to deteriorate.
So the state statute has a definition of what blight is. There's, as I recall, 11 factors. If you don't have home or the property owner approval, you have to meet at least 4 of those criteria. However, if the property owner agrees, you only have to meet 1 of those criteria. And blight is such a blighted word. It really is a deficiency. And it may be a deficiency in water service, it may be a deficiency in sewer service, it may be a deficiency in the road network. It may be a deficiency in how the property is divided up. You know, it may be subdivided into parcels that are no longer marketable. You know, and so you have to subdivide it to make it one large parcel. So there's many different definitions of really what they call blight, but it's really, think of deficiencies as more accurate term, in my opinion.
And I would just add to that, one of the responsibilities, if we're to create an urban renewal authority, we have to prove there is blight. We'd have to conduct what's called a blight study of the area we wish to create under this URA tool.
I'll tell you too, that I don't know how many of you ever drive south on I-25 to past the Air Force Academy. But as you look to the west at the Air Force Academy, at the North Gate entrance there, that was just recently blighted. that beautiful meadow of land met the legal definition of blight after a blight study, not too surprisingly. And has an urban renewal designation now for a new project that they're doing down in that area. So the legal challenge or requirement that you find blight is in practicality not a problem.
Anyone else? No? All right, thank you very much.
We will come back and talk frequently as we explore these options further.
Thank you very much. That will enter into mayor and trustee comments. And let's go trustee White,
None, thank you.
trustee Bristow,
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
trustee Tate,
There we go. Wanted to make a comment on the newsletter. It's really looking good. I was really impressed with its very informative, very colorful, eye-catching. But my mother-in-law actually made a comment. She's 81. She enjoyed seeing it as well.
I think the battery's dying on that one. All right, trustee Westcott, anything?
I just wanted to comment that I thought it was really cool to see in my Facebook feed that the town was sponsoring a webinar on water conservation. And that was just really cool. And I really love the idea that we're doing more to get information out to townspeople and especially on those issues such as water bills, water conservation. So thumbs up on that. Good job.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey?
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, that's. Give this woman an Oscar. Trustee Cohen?
I'd like to echo what trustee Westcott just said about the Resource Central webinar. Thank you for getting that set up. They did, I went to it. It was very informative. They said our name out loud as a sponsor, so we got a little press there. I also would like to say thank you to staff for all the work you're doing on our social media feed to keep everybody updated about the trash and whose day it is and what's going on with the buckets and just all of the stuff that's going on in the town. That's a huge improvement. So thank you.
Well, just a quick comment about both of those things, Resource Central and improved communications. Those both came out of priority setting from the board since I've been here. So we are following the board's lead on both of those things. So kudos to the board for sending us in those directions.
I just have a couple of things. One, I was inundated with phone calls with the whole trash. I mean, people couldn't figure out, there were a lot of people couldn't figure out what zone they were in or where they were at. So I had spoken with Brian about maybe doing a map with color coding so people, because one thing they did was there was the High Plains PUD. People didn't know what a High Plains PUD was. They know High Plains or the farms but yeah, so we're going to simplify that a little bit. And there was something else and I completely blanked, probably because I'm tired. Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and call it a night. And, look for a motion to adjourn.
Please adjourn.
Please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned at 8:10.
Feel better, trustee Westcott.